After spending the night at the usual dispersed campsite on hot and flat wood, I was in Hetchy first thing in the morning and scored a nice shaded parking spot. Now, if you're not familiar with the Hetch parking, it's actually better to park in the overflow lot along the road. You'll be closer to the trailhead and you are more likely to find a shaded space there, both of which you will appreciate when you come back after several days of backpacking. The plan for this trip was simple. I'll do the well-trodden loop north of Hetchy. The first day, I'll make to Rancheria Falls and camp there. On the second, Lake Bonan. And then Laurel Lake on the third day before coming back to the parking lot for the total of 30 miles in 4 days. There are some serious climbs from Rancheria Falls to Lake Bonan, but the rest should be nice and leisurely. Hetchy was pretty full, thanks to the record amount of snow last winter. The water pouring down the cliff into the reservoir went right out the floodgate, so to speak. It was quite a sight to behold right off the bat. What a way to start one of the most scenic trails in Yosemite. Soon after you pass the tunnel, you have to go through the gauntlet of the waterfalls. The first one, Tiolala, was more treacherous, with its water spilling over the trail like a river. After that, you come to Wapama Falls. They will soak you thoroughly. It was hot day in July in Yosemite, and the cold shower was refreshing. From this point on, it was ups and downs along the shore all the way to Rancheria Creek. It was one of the most spectacular and peaceful trails I've ever been on, with wildflowers along the path and a view of deep blue water surrounded by a towering cliff. After about 7 miles from the parking lot, you come to this stupendous whitewater in the woods. It pours over the granite slab in such a force that you think this is the waterfall. It's Rancheria Creek. The actual waterfall is still about a quarter miles away. As soon as I saw it, I knew it was the place I was going to camp. I still had a good amount of daylight left, and I could have locked down the 5 miles, but I was sure I wasn't going to find any better place to camp. There was a real nice shady side with turquoise full of water at the bottom of this white water, but it was the way taken by good folks from LA area. I had to take a poor man's plot higher up with no shade. I had to wait till later in the evening till the sun went down before pitching the tent. Still, I can complain with the ferociously beautiful water roaring down in my front yard. Well into the night, it was like a jetliner taking off right next to you. I slept through it fine though. The next morning, I climbed out of the creek and resumed my trekking to Lake Vernon. Before getting on the main trail though, I made a short detour to the waterfall. At the waterfalls, I found this pair of sandals floating around in the swirling eddy. Luckily, there was no body attached to it. If anybody was in there, he wouldn't have survived his way here. If he did, he certainly wasn't going to on the way down. Soon the trail started its climb of 3,500 feet gain over 6 miles. The trail was exposed and didn't have much view, at least till you get to about halfway of the first stretch. Then the view of the deep blue water of Hetchy reappeared. As you approached Tilted Valley, the trail turned into a shady forest. It was a welcome respite on a hot day after long exposure. A respite at least till you hit the meadow. It was mosquito-infested marshland. Your feet are going to get wet no matter what, so the best thing to do is to get through it as fast as you can. The shaded forest continues once you get to the other side of the meadow. Soon I came to this beautiful creek, a perfect spot for a lunch break. After a brief hiatus at the meadow, the climb resumed. I was reduced to counting the switchbacks halfway up to motivate myself. The one and only Dos Amigos, 3 sisters, 4 weddings and funeral. Magnificent 8, Love Potion number 9. And finally, Baker's Dozen. But the switchbacks went on, even though the Google map said there shouldn't be any more left. They say people are delusionally optimistic. I'm no exception. Imagining that the end is right around the corner, I pushed on. In reality, there were a dozen more switchbacks left. This delusional optimism is what made us the most successful species, inhabiting every corner of the earth. Without it, we would still be a small tribe in East Africa somewhere. And the same delusional optimism could be what eventually got me out of MCFS, I suspect. More on that later in another video. The rest of the way to Vernon Lake was downhill. I hooked up with Jordan and Dante on the final stretch of the climb, and we descended to Lake Vernon together. I first met them near the beginning of the trail and found we were doing the same loop. We figured we'd be hiking together at some point, and we did, off and on throughout the loop. The Fall Creek, viewed from the top, looked formidable. Do we really have to wade a creek to get to the campsite? I would have to see it up close, but it seemed like a risky proposition. Well, it wasn't just risky, it was downright suicidal. Thankfully, the footbridge was intact and operational. It was apparently flooded and not usable for a while, according to Jordan, so people had to wade the creek. What I want to know is, just who were these people and how did they live to tell about it? We camped together at Fauna Lake. It was a pleasure to have a company on the trail, or anywhere for that matter. The pleasure that I haven't had much for 15 years, since I got sick with the ME/CFS. It's a long-term sickness that can turn you into a recluse. Many patients get house arrested and completely lose their social contacts over the years. The mosquitoes at Lake Vernon was brutal. I had a 40% dip and kept mosquitoes away for a while. It didn't seem to have much effect on Dante though. By morning, his arm looked like the worst case of chickenpox there's ever been. Yeah, seems like. The next morning, we filled our water bottles at the mouth of the lake before continuing our journey to Lower Lake. I was bringing up the rear with my camera as usual, and soon we got separated again. I took my time exploring and filming, making a detour time to time for the view of Fall Creek down below. There is something about wide open desolation that brings me such a peaceful feeling. I felt the same in the desert of Escalante 2 years ago. It's not a sleepy peace. It's being wide awake and calm at the same time. It's a feeling of zen. Having a company to talk to is great for sure, but being alone in the wilderness has its own pleasure. Okay, here's a Jordan and Dante taking a break in a nicely shaded spot with the cell reception.
I'm getting text messages that I can't respond to.
Yeah, I'm getting a. I caught Dante and Jordan resting in the shade about a mile away. They were going to take it easy and camp near Lower Lake, even we can cross Frog Creek to get to the lake. And I was going to go back to the trailhead if we can't get to the lake, so that I could hit Yosemite Valley the next morning instead. They were going to have their lunch soon after, and I pushed on, planning to meet up at the creek to decide what to do. The rest of the trail was mostly downhill, and I flew through it so fast that I missed the junction to Lower Lake. By the time I came to this little creek, I was half mile past. I wasn't going to backtrack uphill, so I pushed onward. Well, Jordan and Dante, if you guys are watching this video, it was a real pleasure backpacking with you guys. From this point on was a series of beautiful views of Hetchy. It will be a little more difficult to enjoy the view while going up, so I would recommend doing the loop counterclockwise. By the time I finally came back to the beginning of the loop, I had walked over 10 miles. It would be another mile to get to the parking lot, but I knew I was seeing the light at the end of the tunnel when the tunnel came into the view. I drove back to the hard and flat dispersed campsite for the night. I cooked a big pot of pasta in my electric kitchen, had a dinner with mosquitoes, and then took a bath to remove all the chemicals and grinds on me. Then I climbed onto the back of my car and slept like a baby for 10 hours.